The other day, Merkur watch company got in touch again and asked me if I would be interested in reviewing one of their dive watches. I did a review of their mechanical chronograph a few months ago and I was quite impressed by the quality and also by Merkur as a brand, so needless to say, I did agree to do the review, and now this diver watch is here. Does it live up to a pretty high bar set by my previous experience with Merkur? Well, in this video we'll find out. Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're already subscribed, thank you and very warm welcome back. And if you are new here, do consider subscribing, it definitely helps us to bring you more reviews. So, Merkur sent this watch to me for free and I don't have to send it back. In return, they asked me to direct you to their website and I will leave a link in the description. Also, there will be a discount code that will give you $40 discount on this watch or any other purchase on their website. This watch is actually quite competitively priced, as we will see in a moment, and a $40 discount code makes it a pretty sweet deal indeed. Now, with all this out of the way, let's get on with the review.
Price. What we have here is of course a homage to a vintage Seiko 6105-8000, a popular Seiko series from the 70s which included this reference number as well as the 6105-8110 reference number. These watches were also popularized in the movies like Apocalypse Now and nicknamed as Captain Willard, a movie character played by Martin Sheen. SEIZENN, and I hope I am pronouncing it correctly, is one of the brands that Merkur acquired in 2019. This is my second Merkur watch, and from my experience so far I can see that there is clearly a solid quality control process in place, and also Merkur's timepieces are still quite competitively priced. Price is one of the focal points of this watch, especially taking into account that these days we see a strong price creep from quite a few brands from China. And with a $40 discount code, which I will include in the description of this video, it is a pretty good deal for a very well put together timepiece. Well, based on my initial impressions anyway. There is a room for improvement, of course, and I will talk about it in this video. And while we are on the topic of price, something to keep in mind, Merkur offers a couple of delivery options. However, in most cases there will be a separate delivery charge. Delivery is generally pretty quick, like this watch for example was delivered to me in the UK in under 2 weeks. In the box, this watch comes in already familiar Merkur packaging. I like these boxes, they are robust and reusable. Merkur included a useful spring bars removal tool, dated and stamped warranty card, branded cloth and a user manual. And of course we have the watch, well wrapped and with tags. Dimensions. Across 9 to 3 o'clock the case measures 41 mm. The coin-edge bezel diameter is just over 39.5 mm and we have 20 mm lugs. The case height is 12.5 mm and lug tip to lug tip is about 48 mm or under 46 mm if we measure the spring bars. This will allow this watch to sit very comfortably on the wrists, starting from about 6¼ inches and up. The lugs curve down ever so slightly, which further helps for a comfortable fitting on the wrist. The supplied stainless steel bracelet tapers down to about 16 mm at the clasp, and the clasp is about 17.5 mm wide. Now, the bracelet is not the most exciting part of this watch, and we will look at it in more details in a moment. On a fully supplied stainless steel bracelet, this watch weighs about 116 grams. Nice and light. It still has a pleasant heft to it, and most of the, should I say, lightness come from this quite a lightweight bracelet. The full-length bracelet should cover about 8-inch wrist to about 20 centimeters. You probably noticed already an emerging pattern. The bracelet is kind of a weak link here, pardon the pun. Dial. Dial is very well done in my opinion, not overcrowded and very legible. We have a matte black dark background with printed minute chaptering and applied hour indices, which are well filled with Lume, as we will see in a moment. The writing on the dial is minimal and to the point. I like the font. used for branding at 12 o'clock and the simple two-liner at 6 o'clock. Couple of points here though. First, I think Merkur brand would be more appropriate here rather than SEIZENN. Also, Merkur indicated 150 meters water resistance, obviously giving a nod to the Seiko Vintage 6105-8000 watch, which also had 150 meters of water resistance. However, in the listing they actually declared 200 meters. A minor detail, however, I think it is worth noting. Now, looking at the hands, a very well-executed set of hands in my opinion. The hands are quite similar to the hands on the vintage Seiko watch, including the second hand red and white pointer, where the white bit is filled with lume and the red helps with daylight legibility. Hands are of a good length and I really like the diamond cut finish on the hands, makes them play in the light quite nicely. Also, the central pinion cap termination is a nice touch. We have a date at 3 o'clock position, the silver frame and the white background of the date works nicely with the applied hour indices. Also, the rehold, that is the space between the dial and the crystal around the dial, is very dark, almost black, making sure nothing stands in the way of legibility of the dial. In regards to the quality control, everything seems to align and I haven't spotted any imperfections under the crystal, not with the naked eye, not even with the macro lens, which says a lot, especially taking into account the price point of this watch. Now, the lume. Lume is very decent indeed. Merkur mentions in the listing the use of Swiss C3 lume here and it performs very well. Crystal. We have an ever so slightly domed sapphire crystal here with a very subtle beveling towards the bezel. According to Merkur, the slight curvature of the crystal is supposed to help with the underwater legibility. I didn't have a chance to test it underwater, but in the normal conditions this watch is very legible. Also, I couldn't find any mention of anti-reflective coating on Merkur's website, so I'm not sure if there is any applied. Regardless though, the dial is very legible. Bezel. We have 120 clicks unidirectional aluminum insert bezel here. According to Merkur, they used a sapphire-coated lumed PIB at 12 o'clock, which I can confirm it does test positive for sapphire, and according to Merkur listing, it actually costs more than the ceramic insert. Well, from my perspective, looks like Merkur tries to stick as close as possible to the vintage Seiko design, which also used an aluminum insert bezel, by the way. In terms of bezel action, we have a coin edge bezel, which is easy to grip and it also has a good resistance. There is a very little backplay. All in all, the bezel action is pretty good. The sound is nice and crisp. The bezel on my watch aligns pretty much perfectly. Moving on to the case, the finishing is definitely above the price point in my opinion. We have a brushed top of the case and the mirror polished flanks. The back of the case is also mirror polished, the transitions between the surfaces are finished really well, no sharp edges here, a hallmark of a well-finished case. We have a signed screw-down crown, the threading is smooth and of sufficient length, and we have an engraved screw-on back case. I like the engraving, looks like there is a subtle sunburst effect there as well, nice attention to details. As I mentioned earlier, Merkur declares 200 meters of water resistance on this watch, which makes perfect sense and, of course, makes this watch very practical. Movement. Merkur used Seiko Instruments NH35A automatic movement here. It is robust and reliable movement that hacks and winds and has about 41 hours of power reserve. Looks like Merkur regulates their movements. The movement in this watch is quite accurate, as we can see it on the time graph. I actually used 52 degrees lift angle instead of 53 as specification suggests. However, to the best of my knowledge, it only matters for the amplitude measurement. So, as we can see, it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour, and it is quite accurate indeed. Bracelet. Okay, we finally came to the part of this watch that I can unleash my complaining powers on. Well, even according to Merkur's listing, it is good for preventing the watch from falling off, which is quite an achievement. Okay, jokes aside, it is actually not the worst looking bracelet I came across. It does give this watch somewhat dressier look. However, I think that's about all that is positive about it. Other than that, this bracelet is a bit too thin, a bit too fiddly to adjust. It is quite short, it will only be long enough for wrists just under 8 inches in circumference, and also the clasp. It is simple double pusher clasp, but it is not signed, it is pressed and is very teeny. In short, Merkur would be much better off supplying this watch on, let's say, a WAFFLE rubber strap like this one. It would look much better in my opinion and would be much more practical and most likely cost less. Here is this watch on my 7-inch wrist. And for reference, here it is on about 6¼ inch wrist.
Okay, the good, the bad, and, well, as I mentioned, this is my second Merkur watch and I think it is pretty good, especially taking into account the price point. I will leave a link to the Merkur Reverse Panda Mechanical Chronograph that I reviewed in the past in the description. In terms of things to watch out for, well, a slight play in the bezel and water resistance mismatch are definitely not deal breakers, well, not for me anyway. I think the overall quality of materials, execution and quality control on this watch by far compensates for those minor shortcomings. As for improvements, I think it would be beneficial for Merkur to brand this watch as Merkur. I think it would help the overall aesthetics of this watch and, of course, would help to promote Merkur as a brand. And, of course, the bracelet, it just stands out and not in a good way on this overall really good quality watch. So a simple rubber strap replacement would go a long way here. What are your thoughts? Please let us know in the comments. And if you find this review helpful, do smash that like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next one.